you haven't changed your lifestyle much. You're still buying the same groceries, paying the same bills, driving the same car, yet somehow, at the end of the month, there's less left than before. It feels confusing, it feels unfair, and most people blame themselves. They think they're bad at budgeting or not working hard enough. But the truth is, something much bigger is happening quietly in the background. Inflation doesn't arrive like a sudden storm. It creeps in slowly, almost invisibly. Prices don't double overnight. They rise little by little, so small that you barely notice at first. $1 more here, $2 more there. But over time, those small increases add up, and before you realize it, your money can't buy what it used to. This is how inflation steals, not loudly, not aggressively, but silently. Think about the last time you went grocery shopping. You didn't walk out angry because prices jumped dramatically in one day. Instead, you noticed items shrinking in size while prices stayed the same. A box feels lighter, a butter looks smaller. This isn't your imagination. It's a strategy. Companies know that people react strongly to price hikes, so they reduce quantity instead. You pay the same, but receive less. That's inflation at work, disguised as normal business. Now, think about your income. For most people, wages do not rise at the same speed as inflation. Your salary might increase once a year, if at all, and even when it does, it often doesn't match the real increase in living costs. On paper, you're earning more. In reality, you're falling behind. This gap between income growth and price growth is where inflation does the most damage. Housing is one of the clearest examples. Rent increases quietly, lease by lease. Mortgage rates fluctuate. Property taxes rise. Insurance costs creep up. None of it feels dramatic in isolation, but together, they consume a larger portion of your income every year. What used to be affordable now feels heavy, and what once felt like stability now feels uncertain. Transportation tells the same story. Fuel prices go up and down, but rarely return to old lows. Car prices rise. Repairs cost more. Insurance premiums increase. Even public transportation isn't immune. Each adjustment feels reasonable on its own, but combined, they quietly drain your financial flexibility. Inflation also changes how people behave, often without realizing it. When money feels tighter, people delay decisions. They postpone buying homes, they avoid starting families. They push off medical care. They rely more on credit cards, and debt becomes the temporary solution to a permanent problem. But debt doesn't protect you from inflation. It magnifies its effects. Credit card interest rates rise alongside inflation. So while you use credit to cope with higher prices, the cost of that borrowing also increases. You're not just paying more for goods, you're paying more to afford those goods. This creates a cycle that's hard to escape. Many people feel like they're running faster just to stay in the same place. Savings suffer too. Money sitting in a low interest account quietly loses value every year. Inflation outpaces returns. You may see the same number in your bank account, but its purchasing power is shrinking. What could buy you a month of expenses a few years ago might now cover only 3 weeks. Inflation doesn't take your money directly. It erodes what your money can do. This is especially dangerous for people who rely on fixed incomes. Retirees, pension holders, and hourly workers feel the pressure the most. Their income doesn't automatically adjust to rising costs. Each year, inflation chips away at their security. What once felt like enough slowly becomes insufficient. Even education and healthcare are not spared. Tuition rises, fees increase. Medical bills grow more complex and expensive. Insurance covers less. Deductibles rise. People don't always feel these changes immediately, but when a crisis hits, the financial impact is sudden and overwhelming. What makes inflation so powerful is how normal it feels. There's no single moment where everyone stops and says, "This is the problem." Life continues. People adapt. They cut small comforts. They accept less. They normalize struggle. And because it happens gradually, inflation rarely feels like an emergency until years have passed and the damage is already done. Governments and central banks often describe inflation using percentages and charts. But for ordinary people, inflation isn't a statistic. It's a feeling. It's stress at the checkout line. It's anxiety when bills arrive. It's the quiet fear of not being prepared for the future. And yet, most people never fully understand why this is happening or how deeply it affects their lives. Another hidden effect of inflation is how it widens inequality. Those who own assets like property, businesses, or investments often benefit or at least protect themselves. Asset values tend to rise with inflation, but those who rely only on wages lose ground. Inflation doesn't hit everyone equally. It rewards ownership and punishes dependence on income. Over time, this creates a divide. One group feels relatively stable, even growing wealthier. The other feels constantly under pressure, no matter how hard they work. This isn't because of laziness or poor decisions. It's because inflation quietly reshapes the rules of the economy. Most people are taught to focus on earning more, not protecting what they earn. But when inflation is high or persistent, protection matters just as much as income. Without understanding inflation, people blame themselves instead of recognizing the system working against them. The most dangerous thing about inflation is not rising prices. It's the illusion that everything is fine. Stores are open. Jobs exist. Money is still being earned. But underneath, the value of that money is slipping away. And unless you pay close attention, you don't notice the loss until it's already changed your future. This is how inflation quietly steals your money. Not by taking it from your wallet, but by reducing what your wallet can do. And the longer it goes unnoticed, the more power it gains over your life. We often talk about inflation in terms of numbers, prices going up, interest rates changing, but its real damage isn't just on your grocery bill. It's quieter. It slowly starts to shape your decisions, your habits, and even your dreams. When you're spending all your energy just trying to keep up with rent, food, and utilities, planning for the future feels like a luxury you can't afford. Retirement becomes a distant idea. Saving feels pointless, and investing sounds terrifying when you're already struggling to stay afloat. Inflation changes how we see money itself. What once felt like a symbol of security and opportunity now feels temporary and fragile. We rush to spend before prices rise again, feeding a cycle of consumption instead of strategy. The question shifts from how can I grow my money to how can I stretch it just a little further. This change in mindset is one of inflation's most powerful and invisible eye effects. Over time, we adapt in small ways that seem harmless. We switch to cheaper brands, we skip a night out, we put off that vacation, we tell ourselves, it's just for now. But inflation rarely goes backward. What starts as a short-term adjustment slowly becomes a permanent lifestyle change. And it doesn't stop there. The financial pressure seeps into our relationships. Couples argue more about money. Parents feel guilty for not being able to provide what they had hoped for their kids. Young adults delay moving out, not because they want to, but because the math just doesn't work anymore. Inflation doesn't just hit your bank account. It hits your confidence and your sense of freedom. Small businesses feel it too. Their costs rise faster than what customers are willing to pay. This forces an impossible choice. Raise prices and risk losing customers, or cut corners and risk losing trust. Many business owners are working harder than ever for thinner and thinner margins. From the outside, things might look fine, but inside, the pressure is immense. Inflation also creates a distorted picture of success. You see people with new cars or taking fancy vacations and assume they're doing great. But often, that's just debt in disguise. Debt can mask the effects of inflation for a while creating an illusion of stability. But when interest rates rise, that illusion shatters, and the bills come due. One of the most misunderstood parts of inflation is how it punishes patience. You think you're being responsible by saving cash, but inflation is quietly eating away its value every single day. In this environment, doing nothing is a financial decision with real consequences. The old advice, work hard, save your money, doesn't work the same way when the rules of the game have changed. This environment also stifles opportunity. When survival costs more, fewer people can afford to take risks. Starting a business, going back to school, or pursuing a creative passion all feel too dangerous. People are pushed toward what feels stable, even if it's unfulfilling. This slows down innovation and makes it harder for people to climb the ladder. The psychological toll is just as heavy. Constant financial stress leads to mental fatigue. You feel like you're always running on a treadmill, always behind, never quite catching up. This exhaustion makes it harder to think clearly, to plan, or to adapt. Many of us think of inflation as something that just happens, like the weather. But it's driven by policy decisions, changes in the money supply, and shifts in spending. These big, abstract forces have a deeply personal impact that we feel every time we're at the checkout counter. And what makes it so tricky is that it often happens during times of apparent growth. There are jobs, the markets are moving, but when prices rise faster than trust, people stop believing that their effort will lead to progress. Of course, some people navigate this better than others. Those with assets, financial knowledge, or flexible income can adapt more quickly. But most of us were never taught how to do this. We were taught to work hard and wait. And inflation silently punishes that waiting. Over time, it reshapes what we consider normal. A smaller home, fewer vacations, delayed goes, it all starts to feel responsible, even mature. We adapt, but in that adaptation, we can forget what we once believed was possible. That's why inflation is often called a silent tax. No one sends you a bill, but year after year, your purchasing power is taken away. But understanding inflation isn't about being afraid of it. It's about seeing it clearly. When you recognize how it works, you stop blaming yourself for struggles that aren't entirely your fault. You start asking better questions. Why does money feel tighter even when my income is up? Why do my goals feel further away? It teaches us an uncomfortable but crucial lesson. Effort alone isn't enough anymore. In a world where money loses value over time, strategy and awareness are just as important. Many people are just waiting for things to go back to normal. But inflation doesn't rewind. It resets the baseline. Prices settle higher, expectations adjust lower, and life moves on. Those who understand this can adapt earlier. The future shaped by inflation shows up in delayed retirements, in kids taking on more student debt, in adults working longer hours for less security. It's not a sudden collapse. It's a slow transformation. Inflation doesn't steal your hope all at once. It chips away at it, quietly and patiently, until you start to believe things can't get better. But awareness changes the story. When you understand inflation, you start making different choices. You pay attention to where your money is. You question old advice. You start thinking in terms of value, not just numbers. The most important shift is mental, seeing inflation as an active force, not just background noise. Realizing that standing still financially is actually moving backward. Inflation thrives in silence and confusion. It loses its power when we talk about it, learn about it, and plan for it. The moment you see it for what it is, you start to take back control. Because inflation doesn't take your money in one dramatic moment. It takes it quietly over years while you're busy living your life. And the sooner you recognize that, the better prepared you'll be. Thanks for watching.